bother focusing on improving your crafts store business when you can instead smuggle artifacts and deny people their right to healthcare? Hello everyone and welcome back to the Gamer Crafting channel. I am Angie, Indie Yarn Dyer and General Mess. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe. We all love a wander through a huge craft store. The inspiration of the raw materials, the latent kinetic energy in a ball of yarn or a blank canvas. Many of us have used big box yarns in the past, or still do, including the Hobby Lobby brand I Love This Yarn. In today's deep dive, we're taking a look at Hobby Lobby's checkered past. Hobby Lobby is a USA-based craft store company with over 900 locations and 43,000 employees. It started off in 1973 by David Green, the owner and founder of the company, by paying cerebral palsy patients 10 cents for every picture frame they made. That's about 57 cents in today's money. The federal minimum wage in 1973 was $1.80. Yep, that's how Hobby Lobby started off, by taking advantage of a law that allows businesses to severely underpay disabled people for their labor. Given that David Green is now worth over $6.4 billion, it's safe to say that this wasn't a generous, altruistic thing to do, and in fact was driven by profits. David Green has been quoted multiple times saying that the Bible doesn't say anything bad about owning a business and being profitable. Interestingly, I seem to remember a story in the Bible where Jesus literally, rocks up to the temple and starts flipping tables. But hey, at least he never said anything specific, right? He never said anything like, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Oh wait, Jesus totally did say that. I wonder what Jesus would think about taking advantage of the sick and disabled to build your craft empire. In 1902, Henry Walters bought 1,700 artifacts and art pieces from an Italian priest after spending just a week looking at all of the items. As it turned out, while the collection did hold an impressive amount of Imperial Roman sarcophagi, it also contained a host of faked art pieces and artifacts with dubious provenance. The Museum of the Bible is located in Washington, D.C., just 2 blocks away from the National Mall, in a $50 million building with 6 floors and a 500-person amphitheater. The museum proudly asserts its non-sectarian alignment while at the same time requiring all of the board members, which weirdly includes the CEO and owner of Auntie Anne's Pretzels, to sign a faith-based pledge and statement before joining. Founded in 2010 as a nonprofit, the primary donors in the beginning were Hobby Lobby, the Green family, the ones who own Hobby Lobby, and the National Christian Foundation. The National Christian Foundation is known for helping to assist donors to channel money towards the charity of their choosing, accepting non-monetary donations like real estate, stocks, and art, as well as cash. Between the years of 2015 and 2017, the NCF donated over $56 million to charities labeled as hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center, most of those being homophobic, with the aim to deny LGBTQ rights like civil unions, marriage, and adoption, as well as organizations against immigration and those promoting the anti-Muslim hate movement in the USA. In 2009, the collection for the Museum of the Bible began with the import of thousands of clay bullae and tablets. Bulla, from the Latin word for blob or bubble, the plural being bullae, are inscribed clay balls. Bullae began being used in 8000 BCE as legal tokens to document the ownership, sale, and storage of grain and livestock. Bullae became less popular in use once papyrus became more popular and available. Steve Green, David Green's son, donated 16 Dead Sea Scroll fragments to the museum. Dead Sea Scrolls are ancient Jewish and Hebrew texts with immense linguistic and historical significance, with many being written in Aramaic, which is functionally a dead language. Most real fragments have been irreparably damaged by natural forces like wind or moisture, and others have been damaged by human interference. The best preserved scrolls were found in the Qumran caves, and most scrolls and fragments are now owned by Israel, although their ownership is disputed by Jordan and the Palestinian Authority. Experts in the field began to question the provenance of the Museum of the Bible's Dead Sea Scroll fragments as soon as the museum opened in 2017. In 2018, the museum admitted that 5 of the 16 fragments were forgeries. In March of 2020, they admitted that all 16 fragments were modern forgeries, not genuine ancient artifacts. Archaeologists determined this with a variety of different methods, including pointing out that the museum's fragments were written on an old, worn leather instead of on papyrus. To an untrained eye, old leather and old papyrus can look similar, but to an archaeologist, the differences are striking. They pointed out that the writing was very uneven, pointing to the fact that it had been written on old, cracked leather, not smooth papyrus, and that the ink had seeped into cracks in the leather that would not have been present at the time of writing. There is a law in Iraq, instituted in the 1930s, that bans artifacts from leaving the country without express permission. In 1991, during the Gulf War, 9 out of 13 regional museums in Iraq were pillaged, with artifacts flooding into the black market, being smuggled out of the country. Thousands of artifacts went missing, and only around half a dozen have been recovered. This appetite by private collectors for rare and ancient antiquities is what propped up the smuggle and trade of these items, pouring money into the pockets of bad actors and increasing the demand for smuggled artifacts. There are over 40,000 artifacts housed in the Museum of the Bible, collected over the very short span of 40 months. In 2010, an internal expert hired by Hobby Lobby warned them of the potential issues with what they were importing. The expert cited concerns about the provenance of the artifacts, given the law in Iraq against exporting ancient items without permission. This expert also raised concerns that some of the artifacts might be fake. The Green family and Hobby Lobby continue to import these items and these artifacts from international dealers. In 2011, the USA customs agents seized around 3,000 artifacts. They were improperly labeled as clay tile samples, and the countries of origin listed were Israel and Turkey, not Iraq. While it's unclear if the Green family or Hobby Lobby employees knew that the exporters in the United Arab Emirates were attempting to skirt the law against obtaining artifacts and art from conflict regions, what is clear is that all of these shipments were being sent directly to Hobby Lobby distribution centers in Oklahoma. The Green family took the federal government to court in an attempt to get the shipments released. The case dragged on with appeals and extensions, but in 2017, they were ordered to give back 5,000 artifacts and to pay a $3 million fine. In 2018, 3,600 artifacts were seized and sent back to Iraq. A further 11,500 artifacts were sent back in March of 2020. Several archaeologists have suggested that many of the artifacts were stolen during the 2003 USA invasion of Iraq. Despite the vast quantity of artifacts involved, nobody involved faced any jail time. The Green family vowed to put better controls in place, like, perhaps not ignoring the experts that you hired and that told you that there were problems, but okay. They also had to inform the US government of any cultural acquisitions for 18 months. Given their vast sums of money, this is a lot more like a slap on the wrist than any kind of a real punishment. Obamacare, also known as the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, was signed into law in 2010. It expanded Medicare, which allows some low-income people to access medical care, and it put into place certain laws for both insurance companies and employers. In the USA, the vast majority of people access healthcare through their employers. This is a split cost model where the employee pays a percentage of the healthcare insurance premium and their employer pays the other percentage. This can vary by employer, by state, by insurance company, and by plan. One of the laws put into place by the Affordable Care Act prohibited insurance companies from barring people for having a pre-existing condition or refusing to pay medical costs for anything related to a pre-existing condition. Pre-existing conditions could be anything from asthma to having a uterus. Yes, really. Another law banned insurance companies from dropping patients who got sick and became too expensive. This happened most frequently with cancer patients or those with chronic illnesses. The law that Hobby Lobby took issue with was the one that specified that employer-provided healthcare had to cover birth control. According to the Green family, allowing their employees to access emergency contraception, colloquially known as Plan B, was an infringement of their First Amendment rights to free speech and freedom of religion. They argued that because Plan B and IUDs, or intrauterine devices, could prevent the implantation of a fertilized egg, they were effectively abortion, and therefore against their religious beliefs. In 2012, David Green filed a suit against the federal government on behalf of Hobby Lobby. The lawyer's fees were paid for by the Alliance for Defending Freedom, the same people who paid the legal fees and supported the bakery who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court decided that closely held, for-profit companies have the right to deny employees certain benefits based on religious beliefs. Not thanks to the First Amendment, but thanks to a bipartisan bill from the 90s. In 1993, Chuck Schumer introduced the Religious Freedom Restoration Act as a direct response to a 1990 Supreme Court decision in the Employment Division versus Smith case, which allowed someone fired for the religious use of peyote, a hallucinogen, to be denied unemployment benefits. RFRA passed with broad support from both sides of the aisle. Alito, Thomas, Scalia, Roberts, and Kennedy, all men, held the majority opinion that for-profit corporations can be considered people under RFRA, preserving their right to deny employees emergency contraception or IUDs on the basis of religious beliefs. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dissent read, "The court, I fear, has ventured into a minefield." Burwell versus Hobby Lobby reversed the Eden Foods decision, in which a company owner, devoutly Catholic, wanted to refuse all forms of birth control from their employer-provided health care insurance. Though the decision specified that it was only valid for closely held companies, it's worth noting that over 90% of companies in the USA are closely held, including the Koch Industries with over 120,000 employees and Bechtel with over 55,000 employees. As it stands, any closely held company can choose to deny their employees access to birth control with their insurance on the basis of religious beliefs. David Green has donated a large but undisclosed sum of money to the National Christian Foundation, mentioned earlier in this video. This nonprofit gives immense sums of money to the Alliance for Defending Freedom, again, the people who supported the anti-gay cake bakers who didn't want to bake a cake for a gay couple, and the Family Research Council, who regularly push for state and federal legislation to ban gay marriage, gay civil unions, and gay adoptions, as well as opposing pornography and divorce. In March of 2020, while most retail stores were temporarily closing their doors to help prevent the spread of coronavirus, and despite several states' stay-at-home orders, Hobby Lobby unilaterally, and despite the Department of Homeland Security's public messaging around what constitutes essential services, declared themselves an essential service. They did this because David Green's wife, Barbara, had a dream where God spoke to her. Guide, guard, and groom. We serve a God who will guide us through this storm, who will guard us as we travel to places never seen before, and who, as a result of this experience, will groom us to be better than we could have ever thought possible before now. In this memo to their employees, David Green also mentioned that they'd all have to tighten their belts soon. David Green, who's worth over $6.4 billion, telling his largely hourly employment staff to tighten their belts and reminding them, by the way, they would not be getting sick pay if they came down with the virus. After being closed for just 1 week in Ohio and in Wisconsin, who were both under stay-at-home orders from their governors, and to close all non-essential businesses, Hobby Lobby reopened, sending their stores located in those states memos with scripts on how to reply to local authorities who were questioning why they were open. After a public backlash and being issued cease and desist orders from the governors of those states, Hobby Lobby closed again, furloughing most of its staff. All stores had been reopened with regular business hours by early July. Crafters will know that craft supplies probably were important, especially during the early days of the pandemic. Whether it was needing yarn for projects or art supplies for yourself or for your kids or for homeschooling, many people did find themselves needing certain things. But while other craft stores based in the USA, like Joann Fabrics and Michaels, were offering click and collect options at the majority of their locations, Hobby Lobby straight up refused. For them, it was all or nothing. I'm not trying to tell anyone where they should shop or what they should or shouldn't do. Everybody's circumstances are different. There's a lot of areas in the USA that don't really have any other craft stores around, and maybe they live in an area where USPS is really slow. Maybe it's a last minute, oh man, my kid has this project that's due tomorrow and this is the only place within 50 miles. Like, I'm not here to tell anyone that if you've ever shopped at Hobby Lobby that you're a terrible person and deserve terrible things. Like, I'm not here to do that. I'm basically just here to expose all of the weird and shady things that Hobby Lobby has done over the years, and to point out that this is a family that has immense amounts of wealth. And instead of using this wealth for positive things like housing the homeless or feeding hungry kids, they're choosing to illegally import stolen artifacts. And they also spent $1.6 million on fake artifacts and then wired it to 7 different bank accounts and never once thought that that was any kind of shady, which we live in we live in the 21st century. Anyone who's telling you to wire money to 7 different bank accounts should make alarm bells ring, maybe. In any case, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was informative, and if you did like it, please do like and subscribe, and drop me a comment down below to help us defeat the YouTube algorithm. As I said, I am Angie. As I said, I am Angie. I'm an indie yarn dyer and a general mess. I hope that you enjoyed this deep dive video. The next deep dive will likely be on ethical advertising and whether that's even possible for small businesses. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.